Today we're taking a deep dive into the Grand Canyon National Park.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I mean, who doesn't love the Grand Canyon?
Right.
But we're going beyond just the pretty pictures today. We're going deep, using info straight from the National Park Service website.
Official.
Exactly. So think of this as your official behind-the-scenes tour guide.
I like that.
So it's not just a big hole in the ground.
Oh, definitely not. It's so much more than that. It's a mile deep, carved out by the Colorado River over millions of years.
Wow.
You're talking 278 miles of river just cutting through these layers of rock like a history book of the earth, you know?
And speaking of history, the park website mentions something pretty cool. It's not just about geology. The Grand Canyon is actually designated as, get this, an ancestral homeland for 11 Native American tribal communities.
Absolutely. This designation is so important. It recognizes that connection these tribes have to the land going back centuries. It's woven into their traditions, their beliefs, their whole way of life.
So it's like you're not just visiting a natural wonder, you're stepping into a place with this living cultural heritage.
Exactly. It adds a whole other dimension to the experience.
Definitely makes you think about whose land you're actually standing on. And speaking of planning a visit, I noticed the park's technically open all year, but
Yes, but...
there's a but. The North Rim has seasonal closures.
Yeah, gotta watch out for those. So if you're dreaming of a winter trip, best bet's the South Rim.
Good to know. Okay, but you know what surprised me? This place is way more than just staring over the edge. I mean, the things to do section on the website, I was like, wow.
Right. They've got it all.
Ranger programs, astronomy events, did you know they do those? Apparently the night skies there are incredible.
Oh, yeah. Minimal light pollution, so the stars really pop.
And mule trips, even rail adventures. That Grand Canyon Railway, been running since 1901.
Charming.
And they talk about how it minimizes the environmental impact, too.
That's great. You know, it shows they're really catering to all kinds of interests, not just the super hiker types.
Totally. Although, speaking of which, I gotta admit, I got a little lost in the permits section. It feels like you need permission to breed out there.
Huh. I get it. It can seem like a lot. But those permits actually play a big role, protecting the environment, respecting those cultural and archaeological sites.
Right. Makes sense.
You know, even things like protecting endangered condors that nest in the canyon walls.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not just red tape. It's about making sure future generations get to experience this too. So you've got camping permits, filming permits, even special event permits. It's all there.
Okay, so it's less about bureaucracy and more about being responsible.
Exactly.
I like that. And speaking of responsibility, they're big on safety for hikers, especially going below the rim. This today's key hiking messages section, it changes daily. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, that's smart.
Why do you think they do that?
Well, think about it. Conditions down in the canyon, they can change. Like that snaps fingers. 1 minute it's sunny, the next, who knows?
True.
So they're giving you trail conditions, closures, weather forecasts.
Oh, and water availability, right?
Huge one. You cannot underestimate how important water is in that environment.
So basically they're like, hey, we want you to have fun, but let's be smart about it.
Yeah, exactly. Respect the canyon, and it'll respect you right back.
I like that.
Mm.
But before we go any further, there's something I've been wondering about.
What's that?
We keep talking about these 11 tribal communities, right?
Right.
Who are they specifically? And what are their stories about this incredible place?
That's a great question, and it's one we are going to get into much more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Ooh, can't wait.
We'll dig into the history and the culture of some of these communities, see how their perspective adds to the whole picture of the Grand Canyon.
Sounds fascinating. But for now, we'll leave everyone hanging with that thought. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more. All right, welcome back to our Grand Canyon exploration. So last time, we were talking about how the canyon's not just a geological wonder, but also this ancestral homeland to 11 different Native American tribal communities.
Right. It's so important to remember that people have been living in and shaping this landscape for centuries, long before it became a national park.
Yeah, and the National Park Service website really emphasizes this ancestral homeland designation. You know, they've got a whole section about it. It's called like the homeland of tribal communities or something.
They really want visitors to understand that deep connection.
For sure. So let's dive a little deeper. What can you tell us about these communities?
Well, the website doesn't list all 11 communities in that specific section, but they do mention a few, like the Havasupai, the Hopi, and the Navajo.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of those, but I don't know much about them.
Yeah, each tribe has its own unique connection to the canyon, you know? They see it as a sacred space, a source of their cultural identity, a living testament to their ancestors. Their stories and perspectives are vital to understanding the true essence of this place.
It's amazing to think about, right? Like, their traditions and way of life have been shaped by this landscape for generations.
Absolutely. And when you think about the immensity of the canyon, it's almost impossible to grasp the scale of time that we're talking about.
It's humbling, for sure. It makes you really think beyond your own limited perspective. So speaking of perspectives, what kind of resources are available for visitors who, want to learn more? I wouldn't want to just scratch the surface.
Yeah, no, for sure. The National Park Service actually offers a variety of programs and opportunities to engage with indigenous culture.
Oh, cool. Like what?
Well, you can attend ranger talks, participate in cultural demonstrations, even visit tribal websites and cultural centers.
That's fantastic. It sounds like they're making a real effort to foster respect and understanding between visitors and the tribes.
Definitely. It's about recognizing those living cultures that continue to thrive in and around the park and understanding how their history is intertwined with the history of the canyon itself.
It's like acknowledging that the Grand Canyon isn't just this geological wonder. It's a place imbued with human stories and cultural significance.
Exactly. And it raises an important question for all of us as visitors, like, how can we be respectful stewards of this land? How can we learn from those indigenous communities who have called this place home for centuries?
Those are great questions. It really makes you realize that our experience at the Grand Canyon shouldn't be limited to just snapping photos and, checking it off a list.
Right. It's about engaging with a place that holds deep meaning for so many people, both past and present. It's about recognizing that interconnectedness of nature, culture, and history.
There's a section on the National Park Service website that really struck me in light of all this. It's the section on special use permits, specifically for filming and photography.
Oh, interesting. What about it stood out to you?
Well, it made me realize that even the way we document and share our experiences at the canyon, that's subject to regulations and considerations.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting that perfect shot for Instagram.
I see what you mean. Yeah, the canyon is a sacred space for many, and it's important to be mindful of the impact our actions have, even when we're just trying to capture its beauty.
Exactly. It all goes back to that idea of respect that we've been talking about.
For sure. The Park Service has a responsibility to protect the canyon from harm. And that includes harm caused by, irresponsible filming practices or the spread of misinformation.
It's a good reminder that we all have a role to play in preserving the integrity of this place for future generations.
Absolutely. And speaking of preserving the canyon, our journey's not over yet. There's still so much to discover, including those key hiking messages that can make all the difference for those who want to experience the canyon from within.
Okay, let's dive into those in part 3 and see what other valuable insights we can uncover. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our Grand Canyon deep dive. And this time, we're going to focus on something super practical, especially if you're thinking about actually hiking in the canyon.
You mean those key hiking messages we mentioned?
Those are the ones, they're like daily updates from the Park Service.
Yeah, they're kind of like having a park ranger in your pocket, giving you real-time tips and info to make sure you have a safe and enjoyable trip.
I was reading through them, and it's clear they're really serious about safety down there.
Oh, absolutely. The Grand Canyon's not a walk in the park.
No kidding.
It's rugged, the weather can change in an instant, and the sheer scale of the place, it can really mess with your sense of direction.
I actually remember reading a story about a hiker who got lost down there a few years back. He didn't bring enough water and ended up in really bad shape.
Yeah, you hear stories like that, and it really drives home why those key hiking messages are so important.
So what kind of stuff do they cover?
Well, they'll tell you about trail conditions, any closures, the weather forecast, even how easy it is to find water along the way.
Water, that's huge.
Oh, yeah, essential in that kind of environment. You can get dehydrated so fast.
Makes sense. It's wild to think that the Colorado River, which looks so peaceful from up top, is actually what carved out this whole massive canyon.
It's amazing, right? Millions of years of erosion.
Wow.
Yeah, the Colorado River is not just some pretty scenery. It's like the architect of this whole incredible place.
Totally. And it's shaped the lives of the people who have lived there for centuries, too.
Absolutely. It connects everything.
It really puts things in perspective, like
Yeah,
we're just tiny blips in time compared to all of that.
you got it. I think a lot of people come away from the Grand Canyon feeling that sense of awe, that humility.
Yeah, whether you hike to the bottom or just stand at the rim and stare,
Yeah.
there's something about it that changes you a little.
It's powerful. So if you had to sum up everything we've talked about today, what would be the one big takeaway for our listeners?
That's a good one.
Like, what's the essence of the Grand Canyon experience beyond the surface level stuff?
I think I'd say the Grand Canyon invites you to look deeper. It challenges you to learn, to engage with all its layers. The history, the culture, the nature.
It's not just about checking it off your bucket list. It's about letting the canyon change you, broaden your perspective.
Exactly. It's about connecting with something bigger than yourself, something ancient and timeless.
Beautifully said.
Well, that just about wraps up our deep dive into the Grand Canyon National Park.
I hope everyone enjoyed the journey.
We hope you learned something new, maybe even got inspired to plan your own trip.
Remember, the exploration doesn't end here. Keep learning, keep asking questions, keep that adventurous spirit alive.
And until next time, happy exploring, everyone.